this 2.7 kilometre state-of-the-art vehicle testing facility is designed exclusively to measure the performance of everything from pursuit bicycles and EVs to Formula 1 cars. We're here for a world's first, its first ever car event. The car club that made this happen was SCC Private Members.
The length of this tunnel is mind-blowing.
We've only got a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit just because there's a lot of people in here. They want to keep the fumes down, so we're not allowed to rev, we're not allowed to go at any speed. But just being able to be in here is pretty awesome nonetheless. Yeah, this place is absolutely amazing. Right now we're following a R8 V10 Plus Gen 2. Behind us we have Craig in his V10 Plus Gen 1 facelift. So we've got 3 R8s in a row. Also, there's a bloody Koenigsegg here.
There's some very, very nice cars.
So hopefully after we park up, we'll be able to have a look around and check the other cars.
Entering this tunnel, driving along it, and we didn't even drive the whole of it, it's pretty awe-inspiring, isn't it?
It's crazy. Right, so now we're in the belly of the beast. We are here at the entrance to the tunnel. The entrance is just over there, and it goes all the way down, and all the cars are lined up.
So what we're going to do is do a quick walk down of some of the cars.
Right at the start of the line, we've got this GT3, this R8 V10 Plus, which sounded mega. It's actually Suzuka Grey, which is an awesome colour. I'm not sure if I've ever seen such an aggressive front splitter. It just looks absolutely awesome. The red that was done in the fins there, behind the vent, that was done aftermarket, which I think that makes it look really cool. Matches the red in the badge there, the red in the calipers. It's got the red cross brace, which looks wicked, pops really nicely. But this is a very nicely spec'd R8. And next to this R8, we have the R8 GT. So obviously this is the channel's car.
And if you're new to the channel, there's a playlist all about this car. It's actually quite rare. Only 333 of these were ever made. It's a sort of track-focused version of the car, but we'll leave a link in the description to the playlist, so let's move on.
This was the car that we drove down with, Craig's V10 Plus. It looks awesome in this lighting. It's like it's glowing. We were actually looking at the differences earlier between the facelift Gen 1 and the GT. Everything that they learned from developing the GT went into this. The more aggressive front splitter, the wheels that they developed for the GT became standard on these cars. These smaller mirrors, these circular exhaust tip. Before, the V10 had an oval exhaust tip, so on the GT they made them circular, and then that went on to the later cars. Like, this thing was stunning and it sounded awesome.
Now, I really like the Aston Martin Vantage.
When he was looking at the R8, he was actually really considering one of these.
But the thing is, I didn't want another front engine GT car, even though this is obviously on another level compared to the 370. I'd have to get rid of the 370, and I'm never getting rid of the 370.
He'll get rid of me before he gets rid of the 370.
Who are you?
Now, this is the Aston Martin from the previous generation, so the one that replaced, but this is one of the final run cars, the GT8. It's got this crazy aero at the front, basically a GT4 spec car for the roads essentially. It's got this massive diffuser at the back, centre lock wheels, carbon everywhere, proper aero.
This is just glowing. It's like radioactive.
It looks crazy. This is the Vanquish. I absolutely love these things. The Vanquish is one of my favourite iterations of car that Aston Martin have ever done. My favourite models, the lines on it, the way they sound, the way they look. There's a few more Aston Martins here. We've got a previous generation V12 Vantage just here. These vents in the hood make it really obvious that it's the V12. Oh, I love these things.
Damani is less of a fan of these. He prefers the Gallardo over the Huracan, but I personally really love these, and this is the Performante. Very cool cars. I haven't actually driven one yet, so maybe I need to test drive one before I even think about it, but this car is definitely on my list. And here we've got the 720. Look at the silver in this particular light. Looks absolutely stunning. What?
No, it's your catchphrase.
I always say absolutely stunning, don't I?
Yeah, it's your catchphrase.
My brother actually said we should have an absolutely stunning counter on every single video. If we don't do that today, we'll do that in a future video, but back to the 720.
These 720s are very cool, but I'm more of a fan of a McLaren that's a bit further down, the 12C. One of the reasons I love this car so much is because it was so important and so pivotal in McLaren's development. And the only car they made before that was the F1. I think McLaren was so smart with the way that they developed this car and future cars from it, so they would just do incremental steps rather than trying to do big jumps and big leaps at first. And what's quite cool about this car as well is he's got an Insta360 mounted on the top. So that's one of the cameras that we use for some of the impossible shots that you'll see in our videos. Make sure you check the video in the description, which shows how we get some of those shots using that camera. And also check the link in the description because we have access to some special offers that you can get through Insta360.
Now, I am not the biggest Porsche fan other than Carrera GT and the 918. However, you cannot walk past a GT3 RS without appreciating how... Ouch! He can. I can't walk past a GT3 RS without at least respecting it and just taking it in.
I do have to say, I'm obviously not the biggest Porsche fan, but I've heard that even if you're not the biggest Porsche fan, once you drive one, it makes you shut up. So I guess someone's just gonna have to let me drive their GT3 RS.
Yeah, so that you can become a true fanboy.
Yeah, so I think this is probably gonna be in contention for the best sounding car here today. 812 super fast, they're naturally aspirated V12 would absolutely scream in this tunnel. They can go from being an absolutely comfortable cruiser to a weapon. There's not much else you can say about this car other than it's absolutely stunning. So I may be a little biased as to why I like these cars so much, because JM1 Cars actually took me out in a 812 GTS when he had that on loan from Ferrari. That was epic the way it sounded. I think that's one of the reasons I love these things so much. It's actually one of my favourite specs to have the accent colour as yellow for Ferrari, obviously due to the Ferrari badge. This paint is not like what a lot of people do where they get the gloss paint and put a satin PPF over it. This is a factory option, a £21,000 option. Right, so we've just walked all the way to the end of the lit section of the tunnel. As you can see, it's pitch black behind us. Down there, that's the end of the tunnel, all the cars all the way down there. But as you can see, this is the darkness of the tunnel. The further and further we back away, the less light there is until we basically disappear. That light all the way in the distance over there, that is the other end of the tunnel. It's pretty cool to see that little speck over there. Now, we would walk all the way down to the end, but we've seen enough horror movies to know that's not the best thing to do. And also, I'm not sure if we're supposed to walk all the way down there anyway. But we thought this would be a good point to tell you some of the points that we learned about this tunnel.
The length of this tunnel is mind-blowing. It's 2.7 kilometers long. It's actually going to include all sorts of sensors and measurement for everything from sound, emissions, and aerodynamic sensors as well. Now, a lot of work is being done on acoustics in the tunnel, and something we've noticed when we're in here is it's not that echoey, is it?
No, it's really not, and I think one of the things that they're aiming at testing here is with all the electric cars, the thing that they're not trying to reduce now is engine noise. It's more about aerodynamic noise and road noise. So the amount of noise that comes from the car going through the air is not about reducing emissions anymore, it's about getting the extra range, trying to find how to reduce drag, reduce noise in the facility like this.
And even more work is going to be done adding noise sensors all the way up and down the tunnel.
Currently, it's had a lot of money invested into it.
11.5 million so far.
Now that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but for something like this testing facility, it's really not that much. It's actually a less expensive option than something like a wind tunnel. Now, the one that's in the UK now was made in the 60s. For modern day technology, modern day cars, and the way cars and technology are advancing, there really needs to be a new option, and this is what that is. You can have repeatable controlled tests, testing conditions, you can seal both ends, and it's awesome. They're looking at installing indoor GPS, which I didn't even know was a thing, and it shows accurate speeds, so it shows what the speed's doing, the motion of the car.
The cost of using this facility is around $15,000 a day, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that expensive. If you wanted to use a more traditional wind tunnel, but the modern implementation of one costs more like
£45,000 a day.
But to build one would cost something like 120 million rather than the 20 million or so that they're going to need to achieve the same results.
It's going to be 27 million would be the final input cost. There's no full-on aerodynamic facilities like that in the UK. You have to ship your cars over to Germany. I think that's probably the nearest place that has a testing facility like that. So to be able to save the cost and to get accurate data close to home is pretty cool.
Right here where we're located, which is in sort of Motorsport Valley, right near all of the major F1 teams, then you'd be looking at more like £15,000 a day here rather than £45,000 a day over there. But seriously, man, let's just take this tunnel in. It's quite awe-inspiring.
now we're inside the hangar area just outside of the tunnel. Right, so as you walk into the hangar, you come into this back section. So this would be the front section of the hangar. It's currently set up to give us a presentation later on, but that is the front hangar door where you would come in, unload the car, drive through, then go all the way through, back there, out that door. There's a turntable there, and that leads straight to the tunnel, which you can see right through there.
And that whole area there is designed so that the truck can reverse in. You can then offload the vehicle without anyone outside being able to see it.
You've got a proper two-post lift, which right now has this beautiful Lancia Stratos. Yes, you ruined it for me. I was living in ignorant bliss for a few moments thinking it was real, but it's actually a replica. Regardless of that, it is still awesome, and it's an awesome way to see how this facility can be used. Now, as you can see, certain areas of the facility are unfinished, but this room has clearly been, is finished, if not close to, because it is beautiful. It just looks like a lovely workspace to work on the cars, be able to pull it in, pull it up, make any changes that you need to, then drop it off and drive it through to go and do your testing. Behind us is that Koenigsegg CCX that we saw earlier. It is just absolutely stunning. Let's take a little bit of a closer look around the car. Right now, the Koenigsegg CCX is honestly one of my favourite Koenigsegg's. It was the last, I'd say, of the first iterations of Koenigsegg. I feel like after they got to the Agera, which was essentially one of these but changed, this was still like the most raw. You could get these in a manual. Now this one is in a manual, close to 1,000 horsepower coming out of this V8, carbon everywhere, carbon behind the headlights, whole body's carbon, these beautiful center lock wheels, dihedral doors that open up and out at the same time, mono wiper that sits vertical in the middle, a roof that you can take off that also has this glass at the top. Now when everything's open, this opens like that, and the doors open like that, so it just looks absolutely epic. And you can just see behind here, you can see the push rod suspension, the carbon fiber cross bracing, the carbon fiber airbox, carbon fiber on the engine block. This thing's an absolute engineering piece of art. It's making me speechless because this thing looks amazing. It's just an absolute dream to be able to see this in person. You can see the way the air intake works. So there's a gap here for the air to go straight into the intake, which obviously goes into the manifold, and even the cooling. So you've got the fans there that direct air straight in. It's just an absolutely amazing setup with this push rod suspension. Could you imagine how crazy this thing would sound if it just had a straight through exhaust?
I can't even imagine it. Now what's really interesting is how it actually is sending all of the exhaust gases downwards.
Yeah, so Mr. JWW did a video, I think it might have actually been on this car, and when he revs it you can see the flames, they dump straight down onto the floor and then just spread on the ground. It looks ridiculous. Studying motorsport engineering and seeing something like this, to see this is the best at the time, like this was one of the fastest road cars ever made at the time. It's just absolutely amazing to see, and the advancements that have been made from then to now is just crazy. So if you want to see more awesome content like this, crazy stuff that we just love doing with our cars and with our friends, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any content, and we'll see you guys next time on Sports and Touring.